Well, the channel mixer is something that people usually don't get around to using until they want to go from color to black and white. And many of you are probably in love with color images and you don't really care much about black and white, but I'm going to see if I can convince you to at least give it a thought. Black and white can really add a lot to your resume when it comes to photographs, and I really think that your portfolio can be enhanced with black and white photographs. But if you don't agree, that's that's kind of up to you. But at least bear with me for the following tutorial, and we'll take a look at what Channel Mixer can give you. First of all, when you're converting from color to black and white, the first thing you want to realize is that your channels can give you a lot of valuable information about that process conversion. If you're not familiar with channels in general, basically you just got to keep in mind that your red, green, and blue image, we traditionally work in Photoshop in RGB color space. And if you've seen the tutorial on color, then you know something about that and the different color modes, but you may not have taken time to sort of look at the color channels and break it down. So if you come in and look at individual channels, basically you're looking at the data that Photoshop uses to contribute red, green, and blue color information to the entire package. And in doing that process, it limits certain areas and it heightens certain areas. Say, for example, the red channel contributes more information down here where the brown tones are than it does in the blue area. Okay, but because of that, it has a much darker sky. Okay, and it has like a very sort of, you know, where the blue is in the photograph is the red tends to be very dark. And the opposite is true for blue. Since the blue sky is the one kind of standard color that we have in this, the rest is more of a mixture of brown shades. And but since that's the one area in this photograph that is comprised of one of these three colors, it tends to have, you know, be the most noticeable difference. And if you look at the sky here, you notice in the blue area it's completely washed out. Okay, it's because it's the blue channel is contributing most of the information up here. All right, so it tends to be very empty. So when we go to black and white, we tend to want more detail, and for that reason, for the sky, we'd probably want more of the red channel. Now, when it comes down to the dirt, the blue channel it's the opposite. The blue channel is contributing the least amount of information, and as a result, the channel has the most data, and you've got a lot of detail there in the blue channel that you don't have in the red channel or the green channel. Okay, and you've got detail here, but it's just not as much as what you've got there in the blue. Here, the tire tracks are much more visible, and the detail is really there as opposed to these two. Hopefully, I don't know, hopefully I haven't confused you more than when I started, but hopefully you get the idea that you can actually use these channels to your advantage, even if you're just editing a color image. Say, for example, I've had situations where I had a lens flare on my image, and I had no real way of cloning it out because I didn't have another photograph of the area, and it was taken, you know, in an odd situation. So I was forced to go in and look at the channels and see if I could find one of the channels that didn't have the blemish on it. And I was lucky, and I was able to find that, for example, the blue channel didn't have the lens flare information on it. So I was able to then copy and paste information from the blue channel and paste it onto the red and green channels and get rid of the lens flares. So there are situations where it can really be useful just to repair your photographs. But in terms of going to black and white, let's go back and talk about the channel mixer. The channel mixer is one of your options here under your adjustment layers. It's also available to you under your image menu, but this is the least destructive way of using it. So if I'm looking here under channel mixer, I've got direct access with these sliders to the channels that we were just looking at. So say, for example, the output channel is set to red. The red is automatically going to be set to 100%. Green, it's going to be 100%, and blue. So you get the idea. What's happening here is that we're choosing one of the three channels to edit. Okay, so if we choose the red channel as the output channel, we're basically telling Photoshop, okay, I want to change the black and white information on the red channel by mixing with the others. So now if I go down 50% here, you notice the difference in the red channel already. You can see it's much darker. I'll just exaggerate it by going black, or see that. See the dramatic influence. If I pump up all the red in the photo, not only do I get a lot of red in the photograph, but it also, of course, influences the red channel. Now the red channel is completely blown out. It's contributing so much information that if we look at the channel directly, it's completely blown out. Let me just make this a little bit, I'm going to cancel this real quick and make this larger so you can see. There, you can see even better. Let's go back to my channel mixer. Okay. All right, now, so if you didn't see that before, now you can really see it there on the red. You can see just how it's just blowing right out. And that's basically what we're doing, is we're controlling the data in that channel. So if I decided, for example, that I wanted a different color scheme, I can drop information out of the red channel and contribute information from another channel, like the blue channel. And I'm not going to influence the overall value or exposure of the image as long as I maintain a 100% value here at the bottom. They always have to add up to 100% in the end. And you can see now the color has been totally shifted towards a bluish tint by dropping out red information from the red channel and contributing blue information. Okay, or I could even do a combination. I could do 25% blue, 25% green. All right, so that just gives you some idea of how you can use this maybe as a color editor. But as I said before, this is really a tool about converting from color to black and white. If you wanted to do color shifts, you're probably just going to use one of the color adjustment techniques like hue saturation, for example, which is going to be a lot more, a lot better in terms of enhancing color information. Or say, for example, the channel, color balance adjustment layer. Those are going to be typically the ones people run for when they're trying to adjust color. Maybe even levels or curves, but probably all of those before they come here. But just to let you know, it can be done here. So if this is really about going to black and white, let's try it. Let's go to hit the monochrome button. And as soon as I do that, you'll notice that the output channel now becomes gray. And so now, instead of having individual access to those channels, everything I do affects all three. All right, but the idea is the same. If I want to maintain the same exposure value that the picture started off with, I have to ensure that the total is always equal to 100. If it doesn't, it's either going to be a darker image or a lighter image. And that's okay, but just to let you know, you will end up enhancing the exposure. So if you're mixing now with these source channels and trying to get 100%, what do you want? Well, we noticed, for example, that the red has a lot of good information in this photograph because we like that dark sky. So I might increase the value on red, go up to 70. But if I do that, I'm at 131% overall. So when I look at the image, it starts to look blown out. I have no good detail there in the ground, and I have not much going on in the sky either. So I need to take away something from the other channels. So I might subtract 20 from the green, for example. And I'm just watching down here at the bottom until it gets close to 100%. And there we go. Now the exposure is the same, but the sky's darker. And I can keep doing this, but I still have detail there in the ground, so I'm happy with that. But if I decided I want it even darker, I can then drop out information here on the blue. And you can see quickly how we're able to really influence the overall output of this black and white photo and the outcome. So it's a quick way to go from color to black and white effectively. Now, given that, Photoshop, or the guys at Adobe, have really stepped up and said, okay, well, let's give people some presets. And this is new to CS3. And so now you can go in directly and look for particular black and white filters that black and white photographers tend to use: green, blue, red, yellow, to emphasize certain parts of the spectrum. So for example, this photograph is probably going to benefit from the red filter, given that we want that dark sky. But if we didn't, maybe, if we were taking a black and white photograph of a red flower, we might go with the blue filter, for example. Or if we just didn't want the detail in the sky, we think that looks better and we like the detail in the dirt, then we want to go with the blue filter. or do a mixture. But as soon as you do that, then you're setting your own custom variation. Black and white infrared is another cool feature. You can see what it does here. It just boosts the green and takes away 100% combined from red and blue to equal 100%. So by doing so, it really should blow out your green foliage of your trees, which is basically what people are doing in their infrared photography. Usually using it for landscapes. That's the primary reason people use it. Now, if you want to go a step further with your infrared look, you can then select this preset and then blur individual channels. And I'll show you how to do that now. So let's accept this. We'll click OK. And if I wanted to, say, come in and filter the green channel, which is having the most influence, let's go to Filter. Oops, I got to go to my layers first and select, copy this layer, work from this background copy, isolate the green channel, and then blur it. Now, a lot of people aren't aware that you can actually blur or enhance individual channels. You don't have to edit the combination, which we normally do. You can actually edit individuals. So we can just blur the green channel, Gaussian blur, and boy, that goes crazy. Let's go ahead and reduce that quite a bit. All right. Let's choose blur. I'll go with a 0.5. Now, this is so dramatic because I'm influencing the green channel, which, as you saw, was the most prevalent. Now, if I were to do this on the red or blue channel, it wouldn't be nearly as noticeable. I could probably go with a much stronger value. So let's go with that 0.5%, and now I'm going to go and use a tool I don't use a whole lot, but this is the fade feature. And what I want to do is choose Edit, Fade, Gaussian Blur, and it gives me this slider where I can just fade out that last effect. And I don't want to fade it out completely, but I just want to minimize it. Now you can see, now I'm getting a little bit of a haze, a little bit of a blur in there, but it's not nearly as strong. Very cool little feature, and it's not something I use on a regular basis, but a lot of Photoshop users love this, and they use it a lot more than I do. So here's, just thought I'd throw this at you and give you a little subtle way that you can take advantage of it. Okay. Now that just gives it a little bit more, in my opinion, a little bit more of a infrared look, although this is not really a photograph that lends itself to infrared photography. It doesn't have any foliage in it, but now we've got that really nice contrast. We've got a little bit of softness in there, a little bit of that kind of dreamy quality you get with black and white infrared photography. And the only thing missing maybe would be to tint it or to add some noise, but we could do that also. You could add noise to individual channels and fade that out. We can try. What the heck, we'll just do it real quick since we're here. Noise, add noise. That's a little much for me. Trying to keep it fairly minimal. Okay, let's go like 245. That should be good. Now we'll fade that as well. Edit, fade noise. Okay, we just want to give a little bit of texture in there with the grain. We don't want to make it a complete noisy mess. And that should do it. All right, just gives it a little bit of overall grain, a little bit of visual interest, and then I'll turn on all the channels again. We'll go back to the top. We'll add a little adjustment layer, hue saturation, just to add a little bit of toning. And let's go with like a little bit of a sepia there. I can warm that up or go down a bit, desaturate it. All right, now we've got kind of a little bit of an infrared with a tone. And that'll do it. So obviously you've seen from this tutorial, there's a lot of different directions you could go from your black and white photo. There's no right or wrong answer. This is, people are constantly asking me, what's the best contrast? What's the best value? What's the best color information? The best version of that is what you want from it, and what I'm here to teach you is how to use Photoshop to get what you want. I'm not here to dictate, the best possible photo look. That's, this is an art form and it should stay that way. Just because we're using digital tools doesn't change anything. What I want from you is just to make sure you understand the tool so you can get what you want. So along those lines, I'm going to ask you to turn this file in as is with the sort of pseudo infrared look we've got going on here with a hue adjustment layer, channel mixer set to the black and white infrared preset, and then just go in and take your green channel and just add a little bit of blur, a little bit of noise, and then fade those out with the edit fade command, and you should have it all there put together. But if for your own, after you've done that and saved it out and turned it into me as the Rockshop file, I would encourage you to go back and try some other looks. Instead of going with infrared, see if you can get a real nice dark sky out of there, and then maybe do a little bit of toning and to see if you can make something look good. But I always try and encourage people not to rule out black and white. I think black and white, especially with the newer printers out there, they're starting to really take black and white printing seriously, and it's starting to look a lot better than it ever did before. And so we're getting to the point now where digital technology can move into the black and white photography arena and do a really good job. So hopefully people will take advantage of that and really take advantage of what black and white photography has to offer. All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll see you in the next tutorial.